And there was another game that was played that year that was on the 4th of July, when Madden arranged a game for the Beverly team to play the Cuban Giants. Now, the Cuban Giants, certainly they were not Cuban. They were black Americans who, of course, were not able to play organized ball. So they had their own barnstorming team, and Madden arranged for the Cuban Giants to come to Beverly to play on the 4th of July when they could get a huge crowd and get a lot of money, and the Cuban Giants would get their share, and whatever was left the Beverly Club would have. And the interesting thing is that the Beverly Club in 1907 was actually integrated. Beverly's second baseman was a black player named Matthews, who was a student at the Harvard Law School. But on the 4th of July, Matthews couldn't play. He was getting married that day, and that was considered just a barely acceptable excuse to miss a baseball game back in 1907. So Stuffy, who had been playing the outfield, was moved in to play second base that day. And the Cuban Giants had a third baseman named Satterfield. And twice during the game, he hit balls that were sure base hits, but Stuffy made sensational stops and threw him out at first base. Well, after the second time, Satterfield, after the umpire called him out, according to what the Times reporter on scene reported that day, that Satterfield turned to the Beverly stands and hollered, "That darn kid will be a great player when he grows big." I don't imagine Satterfield used the word darn, but that's what they had to print. So Satterfield was the prophet. It was the day that the prophet came to Beverly, and he prophesied that Stuffy would be a great player. And he was right. And by the next year, 1908, Stuffy was playing shortstop for the Beverly team on a regular basis. There was no more Wakefield series, but they'd found a new rivalry to stir up the fans' interest with a team from Rockport. And what they would do would be to schedule two games in one day. They would play the first game in the afternoon at Peabody's Field, then everybody would get on the train to Rockport and then play the evening game down there. And one game at Rockport, they actually took a turnstile attendance and had 1,599 spectators. So Madden's team was really big deal here in Beverly. But unfortunately, it didn't last. The 1908 season was cut short in the middle of August, and the Citizen reported why. It said that Dick Madden was leaving town. He was accompanying the president of the submarine signal company aboard the Lusitania to go to England, with the idea that perhaps they might sell the Royal Navy on adopting their sonar system. So the season ended, and the Citizen paid a tribute to Madden. I won't go into reading it, but he said that he had given the city excellent baseball over the years. As for Stuffy, he finished out the rest of the 1908 season playing professionally. He's 17 now, playing professionally with the Haverhill team in the old New England League. So he could make some money and get somewhat of a higher level of play. But another thing that happened in late July of 1908, the paper reported that Connie Mack, who was the president and manager of the Philadelphia Athletics, was signing Stuffy to a major league contract for the next season when he'd be 18. So Stuffy got to play some pro ball with the Haverhill team and finished up the season there. And then he must have had a very long winter, anxious winter, going away from home for the first time in March to go to Savannah, Georgia, to join the big league club, the Philadelphia Athletics, and their famous manager, Connie Mack, 18-year-old kid. Mack was quite impressed. He called Stuffy the best natural baseball player I ever saw. And of course, at the time, he had an outstanding major league team. And there was no such thing as a farm system back then. That if a major league team wanted to send a young player out for more seasoning, about the only way that they could do it would be to sell his contract to a minor league team with the proviso that if they needed him during the season, they could buy him back, and the next season that he would report back to the major league club. Well, Connie Mack did not want to send Stuffy out and have any minor league manager try to change around the way he was playing the game. So Connie decided to keep Stuffy. He had his choice between Stuffy and an outfielder from the Sticks named Joe Jackson, who would later be known as Shoeless Joe. And Mack didn't think that Joe was that bright, so he sent him out and kept Stuffy. Now, it must have been kind of hard for Stuffy. He only got into 19 games that year. He sat on the bench. He did get to play opening day because their shortstop, Jack Barry, was down with something or other and couldn't play that day. So Stuffy actually got to play opening day. But all through that first season in 1909, he only got into 19 games. But Stuffy obviously used his time very well by studying what it meant to be a Major League Baseball player, learning from his teammates, especially Harry Davis, Jasper Davis, who was the first baseman and Mack's coach. He was an old national leaguer who had been with the Athletics since the American League started in 1901. But one of the things Stuffy did was study the opposing team, and he learned to steal their signs. Now, Connie Mack was not one for cheating in any way, but he figured that if somebody was smart enough to steal the other team's signals, that was just good baseball. So that was one of the things that Stuffy contributed that first season. Well, he went the next year. He went back, and of course the Athletics won the pennant in 1909, but Stuffy didn't get to play in the World Series. But now he come to his third year, 1911. Now he's 20, and he's anxious to play ball. But Mack has got, he has Frank Home Run Baker at third base and Jack Barry at shortstop. And who was his second baseman? I should know, but the name slips my mind at the moment. And of course, Jasper Davis at first, and he had 3 stars in the outfield. But come to spring training 1911, Harry Davis is now 38 years old, and his legs are giving out, and his batting eye is giving out, and he begins to realize he's not going to be able to make it through the season. So he suggests to Mack, why don't you try McGinnis at first base? Well, Mack's immediate answer was, well, he's too small. Stuffy's 5'8". And like most managers, Mack likes tall first basemen. Well, Davis's answer was, have you seen him jump? He said he will catch any high throw that any first baseman in this league will catch. Besides, you must realize, Connie, our infielders don't make many high throws. So after a while, Stuffy is installed at first base, and that's the beginning of Mac's $100,000 infield.